all the different places that we went. Maybe you'd like to hear about, I don't know, there are so many things. My husband was in the war, World War II.
Mm-hmm.
He had a lot of stories to tell, but I could tell you about our engagement when I got engaged to marry him. When I was teaching school, he would come on Sunday to take me to a movie or just go boating or doing something. And he told me that he was going to buy me a ring because I had gone with him quite a while.
Yeah.
And I told him that I really didn't need a ring because my mother gave me her engagement ring. And her engagement ring wasn't a diamond ring. Hers was a ruby ring. It was very pretty, and I wore it every day after she gave it to me. And he said, well, I have a situation that on Saturday nights that he had pinball games in the bars downtown. And on Saturday night, I never had a date with him because he always had to go down there and take the legs off of the games and move them to another bar, so the students that played them wouldn't have the same old machine that they played the night before or the week before.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was going with him, they passed a law in Iowa that those pinball games were illegal and they were a gambling game. So he had to sell them, and he told me that when he sold his games, he would get me a ring. And I kept telling him I didn't want one because I didn't think it was necessary to wear a ring to show that I was going to get married to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And so one Sunday afternoon, he came to see me. And we were going to Cedar Rapids to a movie. And he reached in his pocket and he pulled out this little box. And guess what was in the box?
He bought you a ring.
He bought me the diamond ring. And he just handed it to me in the box. I thought he should have taken it out and tried it on and asked me to get married to him, but he didn't. He just handed me the box. And I knew immediately that's what it had to be, because it was a little box, very pretty. And I opened it and looked at it, and it was a pretty ring. And I thought, but I don't feel he presented it to me the way I thought he should. So I just closed it and put it up on the dashboard in the car. And that's the way we got engaged. And then when he was very ill and we knew that he wasn't going to live very long, he told me that, well, he didn't tell me about the ring. I said to him, just jokingly, I said, well, now, why don't you ask me to get married? And he said, well, how do you think it happened? And I said, it happened when you took that little box out of your pocket and handed it to me. And he said, well, now you know. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing in my life.
Yeah.
He didn't really say, will you marry me? I knew he would because we had gone together quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't disappointed either. I mean, he was a very good husband and good father. Mm-hmm. So that was a happy ending.
Yeah. I mean, so I've heard that you've been on like a lot of crazy trips, with with your bus and stuff. This is kind of a hard question, but what do you think was one of the like best or like most interesting trips you've ever taken?
Well, actually, they all were very interesting because they were always in different parts of the United States. We did go into Canada and stayed there a while, which was different because everybody spoke French, or, assuming that we could understand them.
Yeah.
I think that was the only place that we were in where people had a different language. It was kind of interesting. Other highlights were just every event we took a trip anywhere. It always seemed to be new. We went to Niagara Falls and out in South Dakota to see the monuments in the mountains that were carved in the mountains. We went to the Space Center. That was very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
We were in Florida. That's a different type of atmosphere there.
It's like swampy, kind of.
A lot of birds.
A lot of birds, yeah.
Especially around the ocean, there was always so many different kinds of birds. Then we went to, I believe, Arizona, where they have the bat cave. And at night, the bats come out of the cave and fly out in the valleys in the mountains, and they eat mosquitoes, and there were a lot of mosquitoes in that area. And we could go down in the cave, and that was really beautiful because they had the stalactites and stalagmites that were frozen, and it was fantastic. And then at dusk, the bats come out to go around, and it'd be just like a cloud of birds. There were so many bats, and we just couldn't believe they all came out at the same time. And they live in the cave, and they tried to mine all of the debris that the bats built up in the caves, but they weren't successful to do that.
Yeah.
But they continued to live there, and it was amazing how millions of bats there were. It's just like a big cloud. And
yeah, that would be really cool to watch.
yeah, and then you could go down in the cave, and you could have your lunch down there. They had a restaurant there. That was kind of interesting.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, it was cold to go down in it. But they had an elevator too, but they had walking paths to go down in to see the stalactites and stalagmites. And there were little drips from the ceiling of the cave, and they were building up more. Well, we call them icicles, but they were much larger. Some of them were, like, and some of them had shapes that, you could identify. They looked like carvings or something that was meant to be something else.
Like meant to be a sculpture.
Yeah, they were. They were just very interesting. And you could walk around in the cave, and they had different rooms in the cave that were, some of them were just gorgeous. With the icicles, which we think of an icicle as just a long piece of frozen water. But these were just beautiful. Some of them had color, you know, the drips and the browns that came down, and you know, some of them looked like they had hair. They were like pig ears. I'm not sure that was in the bat cave. That might have been another cave we were in.
Sounds really cool.
We like the caves to go in because sometimes you had to crawl down, and then you could climb and then walk a while. But I think caves are interesting.
Yeah, they're cool to explore and stuff.
We never saw any hieroglyphics on any of them. Sometimes people lived in them, you know.
Yeah,
And then they got water in them, and people couldn't be in them anymore.
yeah.
So,
I don't really know what to ask. What do you remember from, like, what do you think was, like, on a trip, what do you think was, like, one of, like, something that, like, bad happened to you, like, something unlucky, like, the most unlucky thing that you think ever happened to you on a trip, on, like, one of your trips?
There's been a lot of those. When I was in high school, we lived on a farm, and my mother helped my dad pick the corn, and so she needed a babysitter because my brother was really only about 2 years old, and so I stayed home one day to take care of him, and we had a stairway that went upstairs, and right by the top of the stairs was a little door. It was just about like a half a door, and it had a screen door hook on it. And we always saved all of our lard when we fried bacon or that. We saved the lard, and my mother made soap out of the lard. In those days, there wasn't a whole lot of different soaps on the market. But she made her laundry soap with grease and lye, and she'd cook it, and then she'd cut it into bars after it got firm. And so she went out one day and helped my dad with the picking of the corn, and I was a babysitter, and so I always saved all the lard, and from breakfast there was grease, and we always put it in a jar so it would be saved for my mother's soap. And she had gone, and I had to go upstairs, and we called this the attic. It was a kind of a spare room, really. And my folks, they didn't have hybrid seed corn at that time, so all of the corn in the fall, my father would pick out really nice ears of corn and would dry it up in our attic, and they'd be in little rows. You know, he'd have corn in a row, and then he'd leave a space so the air could get in between, and then another row of corn. So in the spring, he would shell the corn and plant it again. That was before they had hybrid seed corn.
Yeah.
And that was the way farming was in those days. Well, anyway, I wanted to put this lard in this jar or pail. We had gallon pails we saved greasing. And I went upstairs and unhooked that little screen door hook and went in to get my pail. And right behind me, and you know what a little brother can do, he can follow you. And he got up there and he hooked the door. And I couldn't get out. And I tried to talk to him, but he didn't understand.